This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Right now I'm sitting down with expert on China and Asian security matters, Rick Fisher. Rick, it's excellent to have you here. How often have you been coming to CPAC?
This is actually my first CPAC. I mean, I've known about CPAC since the beginning of CPAC. I've been in the Washington, D.C. area since the early 1980s, but this is the first time I've been able to get to one.
So Rick, there's something very topical I wanted to ask you about, given your expertise around China. This morning we learned that there is no deal on North Korea, and I'm sure it's not just the rest of the world that was watching this very closely, but I think Mr. Xi Jinping was also watching this very closely. And I'm wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, our president, to his great credit, followed in the example of Ronald Reagan at Reykjavik and walked away from a bad deal. Kim Jong-un wanted the whole enchilada. He wanted the United States to dismantle its military alliance with South Korea in exchange for minimal and probably vague promises concerning a very small portion of his nuclear and missile program. The president wisely and justly terminated the meeting. He did so cordially in the hope that a hand is extended still for further negotiations. But my estimation is that Kim Jong-un is now going to start testing his missiles again. There's a backlog of testing for him to undertake. And in fact, his next large ICBM test may feature a test of multiple warheads. In early 2017, Pakistan, North Korea's closest missile partner, tested a multiple warhead medium-range missile. That technology either came from North Korea via China or came directly from China to Pakistan. Either way, it's going to end up back in North Korea. And so when North Korea deploys its ICBMs with nuclear warheads that can hit the United States, they will probably have multiple warheads that are far more difficult to intercept, even with the missile defense systems we have in Alaska.
So, what do you think Xi Jinping is thinking, given no deal in Vietnam?
Well, he's probably looking at the ongoing economic negotiations with Trump and is very worried that if he doesn't make more concessions, Trump will walk away from that deal as well. And we will move into a higher level of sanctions against China, which will very much affect his economy, destabilize it somewhat, and thus threaten the political stability of the Chinese Communist dictatorship. This is a big concern for Xi Jinping.
Right.
Donald Trump has reached out and kind of grabbed him by the neck. That's what these sanctions are doing. And he's making a nice face. He's not telling the world that this is a serious thing that the Americans are doing. He doesn't want the world to know that he's facing a real threat, but he is. And I think Donald Trump knows it. Certainly enough people in our government understand this, which is why we're not backing down just yet.
Let's jump back to North Korea. Let's say your prediction proves true and Kim Jong-un decides to start testing again. What's the administration's next move?
Well, I'm not sure what the next move will be, but I can tell you what it should be. I mean, we should today be committing to as rapid as possible a buildup of new medium-range and intermediate-range ballistic missiles. We should be reintroducing tactical nuclear weapons back into all of our services, all of our forces in Asia, because we need to deter a nuclear-armed North Korea from even thinking it can get away with nuclear blackmail or even nuclear attacks. Because any war on the Korean Peninsula is going to tempt China to attack Taiwan. and we want to prevent that as well. So what the United States needs, what we don't have, China has about 1,800 intermediate range, medium range, ballistic and cruise missiles in Asia. We have no land-based medium or intermediate range missiles in Asia. We only have cruise missiles, and they're slow and much easier to shoot down. We need to build up our ballistic missile forces in Asia so that we can deter the North Koreans and the Chinese. This is a very serious requirement, and Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un have just given us great license to rebuild our missile forces.
Wow, would be a very serious act, wouldn't it, to start doing that at this time?
But it's the fastest way to stability and peace in that region. The Chinese and the North Koreans are only going to consider war or aggression if they believe they can get away with it. When we have the missiles and when we're selling that technology as well to our allies, then North Korea and China can be deterred.
And just last question, where would we be able to deploy these new systems that you're describing, that you're recommending?
Well, the Navy has a program underway to build its own intermediate range ballistic missile.
Right.
That can go on ships and submarines.
Right.
We can approach our allies and base these missiles on their bases like we base our aircraft and ships. Some countries will be receptive, others may not. For example, the South Koreans want their own short and medium range ballistic missiles, and would probably welcome the option of buying the American new ballistic missiles. Japan is a more difficult sales opportunity, but the Japanese are warming up to this as well. And then there's Australia, which would probably have to eventually obtain its own intermediate range ballistic missiles.
Excellent. Well, it's very good to speak with you here. Thank you for coming on American Thought Leaders here.
Well, thank you for having me, sir.
Yeah, wonderful.